Hey everybody. As you can see, I've decided to do a mukbang video. Mukbang. Probably not pronouncing that right, but I think it's mukbang. Mukbang. I'm Korean, right? I should know that. Anyway, I've never done one of these videos and wasn't quite sure how much food I should get, so I got 2 bowls of ramen because ramen sounded really good. I got one that's a shoyu ramen with egg and chashu, and I got a spicy miso with egg and chashu. Also got 2 of these pork buns here. They look really tasty. Got a little spicy mayo on it there going on, and there you go. And then I got some octopus or squid. I always forget which it is. Is it squid or is it octopus? Taiyaki. But I tried it one time in Canada and I actually remember it was really good. So ever since then I've always liked it. Has a little spicy mayo sauce for the takoyaki. This Asian drink, only found in Asia, is called Coke Zero. Anyway, I went with ramen because originally I was going to do sushi or something of that sort, but A, considering I'm not really supposed to be eating this food, and second, I figured ramen probably isn't as horrible as eating something very heavy or greasy. And I wrote down some of the questions I've been asked over a period of time of doing YouTube, a little over a year. And so I figured we'd sit here and chat, and I'll stuff my face with a bunch of yummy food, and I'll answer some questions, and you can get a chance to know me a little bit better. Right? Isn't that what they do? Anyway, I'm going to start with mixing these up because I put a little bit of Mike's hot oil, of course, on each of them. We went with the crispy garlic chili. Mike's crispy garlic chili hot oil. So let's mix that around. Ooh, they gave you some big pieces of chashu. Look at that. That looks really good. And the eggs look good. Good thing I got 2. I was originally only going to get 1 and then double the broth, double the noodles, and double the chashu. But I'm glad I got 2 because, to be honest, I could probably eat both of these and still eat another one. They're a lot smaller than I was originally thinking. I was thinking they were going to be a lot bigger. So I was thinking, oh, 1 would probably be good, but I'm glad I got 2. Anyway, let's start with one of these pork rolls. Never had one of these before. I've seen people eating these on YouTube videos. Really good. It's got like a soft doughy bun with some pork in there, lettuce. I want to say some kind of spicy mayo. Looks really good. Of course, you got to dip it in the old ramen there. That is really good. Really good. Let's try one of these takoyakis. Of course, you got to try it with a little spicy mayo. That looks pretty spicy. That's good. All right. Before I go into food coma here, I better answer some of these questions because after I eat these 2 bowls of ramen and these appetizers, I'm probably going to be, I was watching Mortal Kombat. I'll finish this after this video, but so far it's pretty good. If you like Mortal Kombat, you like some sweet fight scenes, the acting is, but if you're watching it because of the acting, then you're not watching it for the right reason. Obviously, the only reason you would want to watch it is because you're a Mortal Kombat fan back in the day and the action scenes are going to be on par. All right. I made a little list, about 20 questions here. Things I've been asked over, my lifetime, in the last year. and it gives you a chance to get to know me a little bit better. The number one question everybody asks me is, where were you born, right? And a lot of people think I'm from Hawaii. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I like wearing Hawaiian shirts. Maybe it's because I look somewhat Hawaiian, but I get that quite a bit. People come up to me and be like, are you Hawaiian? I'm like, no, but I wish I was. That would be cool. I'm not Hawaiian. I was born in Seoul, South Korea, 1972. At the age of 2, my biological mother abandoned me in a train station. Yeah, I know that's kind of sad, right? And I had a hard time with that growing up. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow. You know, being a parent these days myself, I can't imagine abandoning one of my kids, like just leaving them somewhere and turning around and not coming back for them, and just knowing I had the intention of leaving them somewhere. Woo! That chili oil is hot. I didn't get that stirred in good. Woo! Anyway, so at the age of 2, I was found by some nuns from the local orphanage. And they took me to the orphanage, and I was put up for adoption through the Holt Agency, Holt International. And at the age of about 2.5, I was adopted by an American family here in Portland. They had a daughter already at that time. She was 2 years older than me, is still obviously 2 years older than me. Her name is Jennifer. And my Korean name was Park Moo Chul. And they gave me an American name, Jonathan Caton. And they decided to keep my Korean name, Chul, because they thought that sounded very unique. So my name became Jonathan Chul Caton. And I've pretty much lived in Portland ever since. I mean, there was a short period of time I lived in Idaho. There was a very short period of time I lived in Vancouver, Washington. But besides that, I've lived in pretty much the Portland area my whole life. I'm currently 48. My birthday is in October, at which point I will turn 49. So I have one adopted sister. I guess I'm the adopted person, but I have one adoptive sister, and she is 2 years older than me. My father lives in Salem with his girlfriend that he's had for many years. My adopted mother passed away from breast cancer about 20 years ago. And that's a whole nother story we'll get into a different time. We were very close though. And it was a very difficult time for me during that time. As you can imagine, I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to get up. I was just very severely depressed at that point. All right. Next question. Am I married? I have never been married. A couple times I've gotten close to getting married. I've been in some relationships. Obviously, I was in a relationship where I had 3 kids. Me and that person are no longer together. I met her through work. And, you know, that's a hard pill to swallow, too. That's a whole different subject. I mean, long story short, I think she decided she liked somebody else. And decided she didn't want to be with me anymore. You know, and for the most part, we get along pretty amicably, and we get along and take care of the kids mutually, so I think that's great. You know, of course, there's a part of me that wishes things could have worked out, but it didn't. You know, can't go back and change the past. We tried once before to get back, and it didn't work out. So I've been in some relationships, and recently, I'm sure you've seen a video, I was with a lady named Sarah. We were together for about 6 months, and it was a really good relationship. I mean, we talked about being together. We talked about being married and going on a honeymoon. I mean, we were pretty serious. We hung out quite a bit, and she got along great with the kids, and the kids loved her. But I think ultimately what happened was we just lived very different lives. You know, her child was grown, living in Hawaii. And I think ultimately we just weren't on the same plane on a lot of different things. And as hard as it was, I think in the overall it was for the best, you know. Oh man, I love when they cook the eggs like this, like the hard, but I like it a little yolky. I mean, look at that. All right. Do I want to have another girlfriend? Sure. I mean, there's things about being in a relationship I miss, but there's also things that are nice about not being in a relationship. I don't feel like I have the obligation to always, you know, do something for somebody else or compromise. I can spend time with my kids, spend time with my friends, and I don't necessarily feel like the stress of being in a relationship. I'm sure I will be in another relationship. I mean, I'm just not in a rush right now to do that. Somewhere down the line, I'm sure I'll meet somebody and I'll try again, you know. What else do? You fall down, you try again, and hopefully sooner or later you're going to meet somebody that you click with, you know. So right now I'm good. I'm enjoying being single. What do I do for work? Well, I don't know if you're familiar, but I'm sure somebody out there has heard of this place, but I work for a company called Costco Wholesale. I'm sure some of you have heard of this place. It's like a giant wholesale place. You have to have a membership to shop there. They sell things in bulk. It's pretty well known. I mean, I would be surprised if you've never heard of that. I've worked there since 1999. In 2005, I left. I quit and bought a little convenience store. I bought the convenience store for $10,000, ran it for a year, and turned around and sold it for $30,000. I just was, you know, after growing up in that environment where my parents, my adoptive parents, had a convenience store, you know, and I swore I never wanted to do that. I mean, I saw what kind of life that was. I'm glad at the time I didn't have kids. It is a hard life, you know, when you spend the majority of your time behind the counter of a convenience store. You don't have vacations, you don't have sick pay. It's very difficult to get people to come work for you that you can trust, you know. And so I just didn't feel like that was the job I wanted. At first I felt like, you know, it was going to be a good fit for me because I came from that environment. My girlfriend at the time owned a convenience store. So I had a lot of experience around those kind of things. But ultimately, I just didn't feel like at that time in my life I wanted to spend that much time working in a convenience store. And while my friends would come in, buy things, and head out to the beach, and I'd be stuck behind a convenience store counter for 12, 13 hours in a day. So I ended up selling it, returning to Costco, and thankfully I was still able to get my pay back. I lost my seniority, but I didn't lose my pay, which was the main benefit. And so I would have been a 20-year employee at this point, unfortunately. But, you know, all in all, I'm happy that they were willing to take me back. I mean, certainly they didn't have to do that. You know, certainly they could have been like, well, you left. we don't have to hire you back. I mean, but they did. And I've been there ever since. So 2006 now is my official hire date. All right. What are some of my favorite foods? Well, by the looks of it, obviously ramen is pretty high up there. Ooh, this spicy one is spicy. And then I put some hot oil on it, so it made it even spicier. It's got some corn in there, bok choy, chashu, egg, bean sprouts. It's good. Got a little bit of a kick to it. So obviously ramen is up there, but not, I mean, I don't mind top ramen, but I've eaten a lot of top ramen in my life. And if we're talking ramen, I like restaurant style ramen. You know, ramen that you get in a restaurant with the egg, the chashu, the bean sprouts, you know, the rich broth. Mac and cheese has always been one of my favorites. It's always been a go-to. If I see mac and cheese in a restaurant, I'm pretty much obligated to try it. You know, I've had a lot of different mac and cheeses. I've had really good mac and cheese and not so good mac and cheese. I like my mac and cheese to be a little thicker. I'm not into like soupy mac and cheese. But I definitely like my mac and cheese a little thicker, bacon, breadcrumbs, a little spicy. That certainly is a plus. Obviously, sushi is up there. Even the Italian food, for the most part, spaghetti, fettuccine. Pizza is okay. I think as a young age and working for Costco, I've eaten a lot of pizza in my life, so I'm not a big fan of pizza these days. I mean, I'll eat it, but it isn't my favorite by any means. Mexican food, I love Mexican food. Chinese food, of course, I love Chinese food. Korean food, Thai food, Japanese food, Vietnamese food. There isn't a lot of foods that I haven't liked in my life. You know what I mean? The only foods I can think of that I'm kind of picky about is I've never liked green beans. To this day, I do not like green beans. You know how Mikey always says he doesn't like broccoli? Well, green beans is my kryptonite. I do not like green beans. I'll eat broccoli all day long. But green beans? No. I'll pass. I'll take a hard pass on that. Let's see. What is one of your favorite holidays? Well, ironically, you know, as a child, of course, Christmas was one of my favorite holidays because what kid doesn't like Christmas, right? But as I got older, I've liked fall. And so that kind of goes along with my favorite season, which is fall, where it's cooler and the leaves are turning. And I'm not a hot weather person. So I don't like summer and spring as much as I like fall and winter. So I like Halloween. I mean, as far as a holiday goes, I mean, the idea of getting free candy and dressing up and pretending to be somebody else, something else, that was always kind of a fun idea for me. And then, of course, it always coincided with my birthday. So there was two things I kind of liked about that, you know? So I'm more of a fall person and more of a Halloween as far as holidays go. Having kids nowadays, you know, I do enjoy Christmas because they get excited about that. But I think as an adult, you know, it's not about me as so much. It's more about, you know, living things through their eyes. All right, see, normally I don't eat this much food lately, so this is a lot of food for me. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to eat a large quantity of food, if that's part of the rule of the mukbang, but I don't think so. I looked it up and it said you don't have to eat large quantities of food. It's just about eating food and talking. Anyway, I I get asked this a lot. What is my political stance? And not going into a huge political discussion here because I try to stay clear of that, but I am a registered Democrat. I would consider myself liberal in my political ideology. I wasn't a big fan of Trump. And I'm definitely happy with the direction things are going politically right now. I feel like Biden does a considerable more than Trump ever did in his presidency. I'm not going to go into the whole other different movements right now because this isn't really supposed to be a political video, but maybe I'll make another video about that subject at a later time. But yeah, I mean, I'm a registered Democrat. I definitely feel my social ideology is more liberal. Let's see. What is my favorite type of car? Well, that's an easy one. I think for me, it's a lot about remembering. And the very first car I had was actually a Ford Escort. It was like a $300 Ford Escort, gutless wonder. But that was my very first car. But the very first car that I really enjoyed was a Volkswagen Jetta. That by far was my favorite car. And when my mom passed away, she had a Volkswagen Jetta, and I inherited that vehicle. And I think for me, in a lot of ways, that symbolized, it symbolized my connection to my mom. She liked that Volkswagen Jetta, and we went on a road trip together. And I think for me, I've always remembered that, And so I've always been loyal to Volkswagen. I've owned a lot. I've had a Volkswagen GTI, a Volkswagen Jetta. I now own a Volkswagen Atlas. I want to get the Volkswagen bus when they do the electric, but I just wasn't sure about the bus, if that was going to be a good option. Like, I don't know where I would charge this thing. I don't live in a house. And my question is, what about if it runs out of power from here to Canada somewhere? Where am I going to charge this thing in the middle of nowhere, right? So I'm still on the fence about the bus. I really like the design. I've always wanted a bus, but I'm just kind of on the fence as far as how practical that would be at this point in my life. Okay, places I traveled. I haven't done much traveling. I regret that something I didn't do at an earlier age in my life. I wish I would have done more traveling. Because anybody with kids can understand and attest to, it's a lot more difficult once you have kids. I mean, traveling without kids is considerably easier. And especially having 3 kids, that's a lot to shuffle, on my own. And it was one thing when I was in a relationship and had someone to help kind of carry the responsibility, but it's a lot different when I would have to do all that myself. And unfortunately, that's never been my strong suit. I'm not good at organizing and keeping track of details and things like that. That was always their mom's expertise. So I'm a little nervous, like doing something where we'd have to get on a plane somewhere. I'm a little nervous about that, like doing that on my own. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, I'm sure I could. But I just never have done that before. I've been to Washington, I've been to California, I've been to Montana recently. That was a new one. And of course, I've been up to Canada quite a bit. I've been up to Vancouver, Canada, Richmond, Canada, Victoria, Canada. I'd like to do a trip up there and hit the east side, the east part of it, like Manitoba, Toronto, Saskatchewan. But right now the border is closed, so I can't go up there anyway. And of course, once again, it's the option of doing that on my own or with kids would be definitely a deciding factor in that. Let's see. What is it like being adopted? Well, some of the memories I remember growing up are going to the family Christmas events, and the grandparents would be like, oh, you got your dad's eyes and you got your sister's hair or whatever. And they would look at me and they would make some kind of joke and laugh. And then you're like, because what else do you do, right? You don't really have an awareness of who you are until much older. And so when I was a young kid, I didn't really understand the fact, why did I look different? Why did my parents were white and I was different? I had black hair and they had brown hair. And you didn't realize that until kids would make fun of you in school and they would call you Bruce Lee. But nowadays, if someone called me Bruce Lee, I'd be honored. I'd be like, hell yeah, call me Bruce Lee. But in those days, you didn't understand what that meant. You just knew that they were calling you because you looked different, and that was hard. And I look at kids nowadays and I'll see them at work or out and about and they're with their parents and their parents are white, Caucasians. And I think, I know what you feel, my brothers and sisters, I know what it's like to be you. And I don't regret coming here for sure. I mean, if I hadn't come here, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had by far, But still, it's hard being adopted, and certainly that caused a lot of turmoil for me at a young age. But, you do the best you can because that's all you can do. And you learn who you are. And being a good parent doesn't mean you have to be a biological parent. You know what I mean? If you're somebody who takes care of somebody, and obviously, my dad was somebody I would consider to be my dad. I don't consider anybody else to be my dad. He's the only dad I've ever known. And my mom, who was my adopted mom, who passed away, was the only mom I ever knew. These pork buns are really good. They're tasty. So, it is an adjustment. There's a lady at my work right now. Her name is Hannah, and she was adopted. And she doesn't know a lot about her history or anything like that. I mean, my parents sent me to, it was called a Holt International Camp. And so I went there twice, and my parents tried to expose me to every opportunity to be around other people that were like myself. And I did enjoy that. It was kind of an eye-opening experience, Whereas I was always the one that was different, to be among people that were all like me. They were all Korean or Chinese or something. Definitely gave you a different perspective on life and what it means to be adopted. What places would I like to travel? I would like to travel a lot of places. I mean, heck, if we're just talking about the United States, I mean, I've never been to Las Vegas. I've never been to Hawaii. I'd love to go to Alaska. I'd love to go to New York. I mean, those are probably the places in the United States I would love to go. Outside of the United States, I would love to go to Korea, of course, and China, Taiwan, Singapore. I think a lot of the choices for me would be Asian type countries. I don't really know if I would have a large interest in going into any European countries. I guess if I was with somebody who was into that, I definitely would be more open to that. But it isn't necessarily something on my bucket list, like, going to Europe, or I would love to go to Mexico, I'd like to go to Africa, Australia. I think for me though, it's just there's never been a big appeal to go to, you know, per se like Ireland or England or something. But it's not that I wouldn't go. It's just not necessarily a place that I've always wanted to go. Oh man. I've only eaten about half of each of these bowls of soup, as you can tell. I'm not used to eating this much food lately. I don't know how people eat this much food, man. That is a lot. All right. What is it like living in Portland? You know, I've lived in Portland most of my whole life, and yes, Portland has problems, and a lot of people feel like, you know, maybe they don't like the way the governor has made certain calls on different things going on with the COVID. I may not agree with everything 100%, but, you know, just because I disagree with something, for the most part, I try not to instantly jump on the bandwagon and be like, oh, well, forget her, man. Because what is the reason she's doing it? For the safety of the people, right? I mean, just like getting the COVID shot. So I don't look at that as like a bad thing. I look at it like, ultimately, she's trying to help everybody. But a lot of people are mad because they want the businesses to open and they want their lives to go back to quote unquote normal. What is normal, right? I mean, do you think anything's ever going to go back to normal? I don't know. I just don't think so. You know, this city has a lot of homeless people and there's problems, there's crime. Excuse me. I think it's all that spice. Woo! Opening up all the passageways there. Anyway. So, you know, I've had opportunities where I could have lived other places. But I just don't see that happening. It would have to be a very big motivation for me to move somewhere else. And especially under the circumstances now, I couldn't live somewhere else without the mother of my kids also agreeing to live there or having a custodial agreement. But if it's like out of state, that would be really difficult. You know what I mean? Like if I lived in this state and she lived in, let's say, California or even, you know, like Montana or Idaho, you know, my kids are still pretty young. I don't want to see them week on, week off or something like that. And how would that work anyway, right? That would be extremely complicated. Not to mention, I don't think my kids really want to do that. Let's see, did I miss any questions here? Do I have any regrets? Well, of course, everybody has regrets, right? There are things that we all regret in life. I kind of regret getting these 2 bowls of noodles now. Because it's a lot of noodles. And my stomach is really starting to feel that. But yeah, sure. I got a lot of regrets. You know, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? But the truth is, you can't go back. You can't change anything. You have to make the decisions that you think were the right decisions. And hopefully in the end, they turn out the best that they were supposed to. And, you know, one of those regrets is ordering these 2 bowls of noodles because, you know, I'm really stuffed at this point. I don't think I can eat the rest of these noodles. But I will save them. And I enjoy talking with you and getting to know you. And if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment. You know, ask me a question if you're curious because I'm like an open book. And I don't just say that. I mean, I want to get to know you guys and I want you guys to have an opportunity to get to know me. And I appreciate you hanging out with me and watching me stuff my face with some ramen. But I'm going to get back to Mortal Kombat now and watch some people get their butts kicked. Because the fate of the earth is just within their hands. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.